Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 79. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, I'm in a good mood today. When asked me my contract situation at all, you can feel free to do that. I got to land the joke a bit better, but I had that planned and it was poorly executed. But bottom line here, Dave, is Mike Tomlin holding... I was going to start this over. Let's just power through. Yeah, just let me blabber like an idiot. That was a good move by you, Dave.
Yeah, I was seeing which way you were going to go with that. It went over my head. I wonder how many other people it went over there. It took me a minute to catch on, but I get it. You tried to pull a Mike Tomlin funny there at the start of things. That's a hell of a way to get the offseason started here on this podcast, but I like it. I see where you're going there. And, man, do we have obviously a lot to talk about today on the heels of Mike Tomlin giving his end of the year press conference on Thursday. Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday to you, Dave. Putting my comedy routine aside for a second here, Mike Tomlin holding his year-end press conference on Thursday. And while it wasn't earth-shattering, it was more honest and more candid than I expected, and a couple of key notes to hit on his status, on the status of the future offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, and the status of the quarterback situation with the Steelers as well. So where to start here first, Dave? I guess just off the top, while it's been reported and expected, Mike Tomlin confirming he intends to coach Pittsburgh in 2024, officially putting to bed any rumors about sabbaticals, taking time off, etc. President Art Rooney confirming that they plan to extend his contract at some point this offseason as well. So we already basically knew this was happening, but to get official confirmation, Tomlin returning almost certainly with an extension by the time 2024 opens up.
Yeah, that should put all that to bed now. He's going to be the coach in 2024. He's going to get extended here. I don't know, however many weeks. I don't know when it's going to happen. It could happen this afternoon. It could happen when the team reports to training camp. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is we can put all that other speculation and everything else attached to Mike Tomlin to the side right now. He's not going anywhere. They're not going to trade him. He's not going to take a year off. All that, and all that adds up is kind of the direction we thought this thing was going to go. Look, the man's still young. He loves what he does. We've said this several times. He enjoys everything about the process. Now, he's not happy about having to get involved in that offseason process this early. He'd rather still be in the tournament. Obviously, what did he say? Something about he doesn't like that feeling in his stomach about having to get ready to go to Mobile, Alabama right now. But the fact of the matter is he's getting ready to go to Mobile right now. And we knew that it wouldn't take long for this stuff to flesh out when it came to his future. And now we have our answers, at least where he's concerned.
We do. And again, as you said, all speculation can be put to bed. The extension, typically that's more of an April type thing, a spring type thing, but it might just depend on the situation, depending on negotiations. Either way, Mike Tomlin should remain and become one of the highest paid head coaches in football. The salaries are never really officially disclosed, but based on reporting and assumptions, he'll earn well over $10 million per season.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to frame that. So we'll just wait for the news now.
All right. Now, in terms of who will be the offensive coordinator for the Steelers in 2024, we don't know that answer, but we do know who it will not be. It will not be Eddie Faulkner. It will not be Mike Sullivan. That's the interim OC and quarterbacks coach / play caller. That's Faulkner, Sullivan, respectively, as they took over for Matt Canada. Mike Tomlin confirming this will be an external out-of-house hire. A rare move for Pittsburgh. Of their last 6 offensive coordinator hires dating back to 2001, 5 were internal promotions, only 1 outsider. That was, of course, Todd Haley. And so that search, I assume, is beginning basically now. We don't know exactly the timetable for when the hire will get made. But again, Mike Tomlin confirming definitively it will be an outside hire.
And here. Good on that. I know that probably made a lot of people happy to read and hear that from Mike Tomlin. That's the right move, in my opinion here. And Mike Tomlin also was asked, will this new OC be one that has NFL experience at the position or as a coordinator? And his answer was yes. So I would expect this to be a currently out of work, former NFL offensive coordinator. Probably one that more than likely was on a staff either this past season in some capacity, more than likely.
Yeah, the criteria that Tomlin outlined over the course of his press conference was external hire, coordinator experience, and likely with a quarterback background of some sort, which most OCs have anyway. But just to kind of confirm that, given the weight and the importance to get the quarterback situation right in Pittsburgh, whoever starts, Pickett, Rudolph, the off chance that somebody else is that starter come week 1. So that kind of helped. I mean, it does help narrow down the field. There's still a bunch of names that can and will and have been suggested, but it actually kind of gives us a pretty decent framework to work with.
Yeah, rattle off your names, and you're going to be writing about this over the weekend, right?
Yeah, I don't have a concrete list right now. I mean, again, mentioned Alex Van Pelt with him getting fired from Cleveland. Trying to think of other names. And I mentioned Pep Hamilton as one. They interviewed him back in 2021 before they promoted Canada. Kind of go back and look at some of those names as well. I think he checks all the boxes. Former OC, worked with Justin Herbert with the Chargers. He took 2023 off. He worked for NFL Network after Houston turned over their coaching staff. He's still one that makes sense. But again, I'll have a list of names probably for Monday.
Yeah, Bevel probably going to be on that list.
Yeah, Darren Bevel. Some have mentioned Eric Bieniemy. That I would have to do some more research in that. It feels a little less likely because there's always been discussions about him not committing to the run and being too pass heavy. And of course, for Pittsburgh, there's such a ground based attack that may not work. But he would bring a kind of a real drill sergeant discipline to this team that arguably is lacking. So do want to mention his name as well.
Right. So exciting to see where that ends up. And you think it'll get done by the Senior Bowl or no?
It's hard to say. I think they want to take their time. This is such an important hire. I mean, this is the most important hire Mike Tomlin has made in his tenure as Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. And so I think you want to get this one right. If it means skipping the Senior Bowl, then so be it. Todd Haley, that lone external hire, he wasn't hired until later in that first week of February back in, I believe, 2012. And so that's not a guarantee of what will happen now, obviously, but I would probably say late January to that first week of February is probably when the name gets announced.
All right. So we will look forward and track all that. I imagine some things will leak about who's meeting with who if somebody comes to town or something like that.
Yeah, I think interviews could start as early as next week. But in terms of the actual hire, I think they're going to cast this wide net and really be thorough in this process, as they should, as they need to be. If I could put on my tinfoil hat here, I borrowed from you here for a second. The way that Tomlin kind of framed it as so, because what surprised me was he was so immediate, as in like, no, it's not going to be Faulkner, not going to be Sullivan, not even, he could have just said there'll be candidates, we'll interview them, we'll cast a wide net. But he was very clear, this is an outside hire. And then whenever he was asked about that, why are Faulkner, Sullivan not in the running, Tomlin simply said, I thought that was the appropriate thing to do. Really kind of a non-answer to it. My thought is Art Rooney came down and said, hey, we got to hire somebody outside. We've been doing the internal thing for a while now. He's going to be involved in the process, obviously, of who they hire. He's not going to be, from the X's and O's standpoint as in it as Mike Tomlin. But I think Rooney's directive was, let's find somebody outside, a breath of fresh air, some different ideas as opposed to the internal thing again and again.
Sure, that makes sense. And he was also asked what he's looking for in a new offensive coordinator, right?
Yeah, and that answer, which I can try to pull up here, was a little more vague. I mean, he gave the old Canada want to score more points, but he said, quote, I want us to be versatile and dynamic. Obviously, we got to score more points. I want to be able to keep defenses off balance. I wanted to utilize all the talent that we have at our disposal. And then just say he's excited about the process and getting to go through the pool of candidates. So nothing that, every other team has the same goal ideal, versatility, scoring, using our talent. So I don't know how much there really is to get from that. But what was the answer on the actual quarterback part? I want to give that answer in its totality if I can try to find it here. Do you have it by chance, Dave?
At one point, just talking about, again, we got a lot of decisions. First, he says, do you expect, let's see. He says, do you expect the competition to be between Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett, or are you trying to bring someone else in rather than, say, draft or outside? He says, again, we got a lot of decisions regarding free agency. He says Mason Rudolph is scheduled to be a free agent, and so I'd be speculating about some of those things. First and foremost, he made it clear that they would like to do business again with Mason Rudolph if something can be done there. So that's one takeaway. Will Kenny Pickett resume his QB1 status? He says, he will, but obviously there will be competition. There's always competition in this thing. We don't anoint anyone. Well, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, let's just be clear that in certain situations, someone. So in other words, he's not going to anoint T.J. Watt starting outside linebacker, right?
Right. Earn your job, T.J. Rent is due every day.
Right. But he says, we don't anoint anyone. Man, I'm appreciative of his efforts when talking about Pickett and where he is, and excited about continuing to work with him. But certainly he will be challenged from a competition perspective moving forward. Competition brings the best out in all of us there. So he was also asked, is the hope of the franchise that Mason Rudolph will be back and providing that competition? Mike Tomlin says it is, but he is a free agent, and it is free agency, and so we'll see where that leads us in that regard. So, look, things can happen. You don't want to, paint with too fine of a brush here, but man, and he was also asked, do you believe that your starting quarterback in 2024 is currently under contract or currently on the roster, which technically, if you want to be technical about it, Mason Rudolph's, not on the 2024 roster under contract, but I take that as meaning the ending roster of 2023 is the starting quarterback for 2024 on the roster now, and he said yes. I think we all agree that person's not likely to be Mitch Trubisky, which I think I will affectionately nickname Milton Trubisky right now for the Office Space character, because I think they're just going to have the paychecks might stop.
Yeah, the stapler is missing.
Yeah, they'll fix the glitch. Hopefully a lot of people get that analogy there. So I'm going to go out on a limb, Alex, and predict that Mitch Trubisky will not be the starting quarterback in 2024, and by I'm going to go brilliant process of deduction here. Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph? How did I do?
A+, Dave, gold star. Yeah, I mean that's the takeaway here when it comes to the quarterback situation. Like it or not, their plan is to re-sign Mason Rudolph and then have him and Kenny Pickett compete in training camp for the starting job. Pickett with the edge to start camp, as Tomlin said, QB1 to begin it, but not etched in stone and not even close in pencil, not pen. So that to me is very clearly their mission. I know that there'll still be discussions about the outside world on Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, a draft pick. But based on everything Tomlin had to say, if you take that at face value and at truth, and I do in this instance, considering how candid he was overall in this presser. They want to bring back Rudolph and have him and Pickett compete for the job in 2024.
Now, look, I'm with you, lockstep right there. I don't see how you can read into anything that Mike Tomlin said. Now, look, things happen, obviously, but based on everything he said, it does not sound like they are going to be major players in any of those other names that you just rattled off that people are going to try to associate and suggest that the Steelers go after here. Now, look, if they're for some reason unable to re-sign Mason Rudolph, you're probably going to have to go. You're going to have to probably bring in a lower level veteran presence to provide that competition there. And the thing with Mitch Trubisky, will Mitch Trubisky survive the middle of March? It's possible because look, I think would it kill you to pay that $1 million roster bonus in the middle of March just to make sure you have proper numbers on the roster moving past then? You still not married to them other than having that $1 million roster bonus invested in them. I would think that this team will do everything in their power to have Mason back under contract before that decision's made. And if indeed that's the case, then you can easily ship off part ways with Mitch Trubisky at that time. But until Mason is re-signed, you have to consider that as a potential option of them not getting him under contract by the start of the new league year. But I mean, Mike Tomlin said you haven't talked to Mitch yet, all like that. I imagine that conversation is not going to be very long when it happens here. But once again, I don't think you can come away, at least by contextualizing everything that Mike Tomlin said, but to think that the two main candidates for the starting quarterback job right now for 2024 will be Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there, Dave. When is the actual roster bonus due date for Trubisky? What's the exact date? Is it March 16th?
Hold on here just a minute and I'll pull it up for you. I don't know if it's the 18th or the...
It's going to be right around there. They're all, Coles and Petersons, they're all similar.
It's either 3 or 5 days after the start of the new league year. Let me look here. It is a $1 million number. We know that. And, okay, I got that information from Joe Corey, so I'm going to have to pull that up here.
Okay. I mean, just because it's going to be important in relation to when free agency starts, when the legal tampering starts, because Rudolph, I'm sure, will want to at least weigh some options, get some information about his market value, and all that can have an impact on whether or not they can get a deal done before that due date for Trubisky. Because you would hate to pick up Trubisky's bonus and option because you're not sure about Rudolph, and then 2 days later you re-sign Rudolph and you just spent an extra $1 million on Trubisky that you didn't have to, and then you're just kind of wasting that money away.
Third day of the league year.
When is the league year? I'm just trying to get the exact date. Is that March 20 something then? Or when
no, I think it's earlier than that.
Earlier this year.
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me here. I'll Google it real quick here. March 13th. So I guess that would put it, the 16th or so?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, March 16th. Okay. So that's the date to circle on the calendar. I'm with you 100%, Dave. They're going to look to get Rudolph done before that. There's going to be an urgency to do that. Will it get done? We'll see. Again, Rudolph, I think, will certainly at least want to understand his market value. If I had to guess, though, I think Rudolph does come back. Just there's more value to him in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh will value him more than the rest of the NFL. And if they can pay him a decent salary with an earnest chance to compete for a starting job, I don't think he's going to get a better opportunity somewhere else. He may get a similar opportunity somewhere else. Might as well just stay in Pittsburgh, the place that you know. and going with Kenny Pickett, because you already kind of beat Kenny Pickett out once, quote unquote. Not that it was a direct competition, but you kept the job in front of him. So you probably, if you're Rudolph, thinking I can do this thing again.
Right. I would, however, try to squeeze the Steelers for as much as I can, but the market value is probably going to be the market value. We talked about this, since Rudolph took over those final several games of the season there. His market value is obviously increased, since he took over, but it's going to be muted to some degree. And what does that look like? I mean, are we talking about 3 million? Are we talking about 5 million? Are we talking about 8 million? If I'm his agent, I'm saying, well, you're about to free up about what's Mitch scheduled to earn as a base this year? 5 million, or $4.25 million base and a $5 million or $1 million roster bonus. So in other words, this team is currently committed to $5.25 million in 2024 for Mitch Trubisky. How bad do they want to get out from underneath that? And if so, if I'm his agent, I want at least that for 2024.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Excuse me. So the free agency begins on the 13th. Trubisky's roster bonus due 3 days in. Rudolph should know his market by then. He'll have the 2-day kind of legal tampering period before then as well. So I imagine they can get Rudolph done before that deadline on Trubisky comes due.
Yeah, ideally, once that tampering, that legal tampering period opens, and look, by then there'll be discussions at the combine, and all like that, where those guys start getting the sits and all like that. But as we get within that 3-day window or whatnot, really even by the first few days of into March, everybody should have a pretty good idea what Mason Rudolph's market value is at that point. I could potentially see this thing being, the Steelers would probably want to do at least a 2 or 3 year deal with him,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. 3 years, 18 million. I don't know if Mason would go for that, but I at the minimum, I'm trying to get that $5.25 million that the Steelers were scheduled to pay Mitch Trubisky in 2024, if not a little bit more.
That sounds about right to me. I mean, I would say he's in that 5 to 7 million, and as you said, above what Trubisky's salary was going to be. So that sounds about right in terms of what he can expect, Rudolph.
And then that way, it's rich enough where it forces you to give him an earnest shot at the starting job. And on the flip side, it's not so expensive that if he doesn't win it, that it's not an awful price to pay to have somebody that can come off the bench and potentially win you some games.
Right, because Trubisky was in that position this past year as a quote unquote expensive backup, and with Kenny Pickett on his rookie deal, your money allocated to the quarterback room in total is still going to be light compared to most teams that have are paying quarterbacks significant money overall. So if you think about just quarterback money allocation, even if you pay Rudolph $6 million per year, and even if he's the backup, you're not spending a lot of money on the position.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, if I'm his agent, I present the FO chart when it comes to
took me a second too, but you're saying the old mess around and
find out.
Find out. Mess out.
Yeah. But I mean, barring anything significant happening, based on what Mike Tomlin said, that seems to be what the quarterback situation shapes up. Now, look, you're still going to need another arm. This team's going to carry 3 quarterbacks.
And 4 to training camp.
So, you're gonna need an arm for rookie mini camp and the offseason. So there will be other quarterbacks added to this roster. Maybe a cast off at a veteran minimum salary, and either a mid to late round draft pick or an undrafted free agent. to go along with that in that room.
Yeah, but in terms of competing for the job, I think it's going to be Pickett versus Rudolph. Assuming that happens, assuming Rudolph returns, the question is, do you like this apparent plan? Do you feel good about the plan Pittsburgh seems to be presenting?
At its core, no.
Okay. I'm with you. I think the competition is healthy, but again, the question becomes, do you have somebody that can become that top 10 type quarterback that can really compete against all those AFC, top names that are going to be back and some who will be healthy in 2024, including Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, etc.
Here's the thing. You saw that you can win some games with Mason, but how much more can a new offensive coordinator get out of him? I think you can win games with him if you have the right system and the protection and all like that. We saw it. He can push the football down the field, plain and simple. He made some nice decisions during that time there, but we're still dealing with a small sample size overall. As far as Kenny Pickett goes, man, and Mike Tomlin said this in so many words, this is a huge season for him. We have got to have any confidence whatsoever. You've got to see a lot more out of Mason Rudolph. And here's the problem. Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett. The only way you're going to see more out of Kenny Pickett in a game is if he is the starter really to open the season.
Sure, but if he loses the job in camp, then that kind of tells you everything right there, that this thing's probably not going to work out the way that Pittsburgh had hoped.
From what we have seen so far, and Mike Tomlin, you can parse some things that he says. Well, he's got all the intangible things and all that. Okay, well, what about the tangible things? We know he's a smart kid, good character. There's no question about that stuff. What do they think about him on the field at this point? And obviously there's questions, or else it would have come out, and we didn't expect it to go this way. But in other words, Mike Tomlin, and we asked this, how far would Mike Tomlin distance himself from Kenny Pickett during his press conference? And I don't remember hearing football justice in there yesterday. Did you?
No, I had written that his answer would be one of three, either a full commitment to Pickett, a vote of confidence for Pickett, but with a caveat, or a complete non-committal. And it was that middle ground of right. Pickett's quarterback one. He talked about the strides he's made, the intangibles you mentioned, but then had the caveat of we're going to have competition and, we evaluate all positions, et cetera, et cetera. So listen, bottom line is 2024 is make or break for Kenny Pickett. A new OC could potentially do him some good. There's no question about that. You're going with a clean slate. He did have a good summer last year, had a great preseason. If he can do that again, he probably will have the job to start the year, but then the real test comes week one.
Right. And I'm not going to get fooled by none of that preseason garbage no more.
Sure. But if he has a good summer, he will likely be the starting quarterback for week one. I think while Rudolph will compete, and I think he will be given an actual opportunity for the job, it's going to be slightly more about Pickett losing it than it will be about Rudolph winning the job.
Yeah. And look, if you don't have a good quarterback in this league, you might make the playoffs again, but you're not going to go any further than that.
Yeah, I think you can compete and make the playoffs with both, whenever he's playing, I think at his capabilities, Kenny Pickett, and with Mason Rudolph. You can do that with a good roster around, a good defense, ground game, etc. These guys can take you to the playoffs. I don't want to mishear things and, pretend like these guys can't get to that point. The question is, what can you do once you're in the dance? And that's where my confidence begins to wane.
That's going to be what it feels like. It's going to be one of the two, right? It would take something monumental to be, to me at this point, to be for the starting quarterback in week one to be someone other than Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph.
Yeah. I'm trying to even paint a scenario in which that could take place, unless somebody in the draft would have fall, or they happen to take somebody on, day 2, second, third round, the dude stars in camp. But I just, have difficulty seeing the scenario in which Pittsburgh really explores in the cost for either paying a veteran or acquiring a veteran or drafting somebody in the top rounds for a quarterback. I just don't see that being the way this thing's going to go based on Tomlin calling Pickett quarterback one, talking about wanting to re-sign Rudolph, and especially whenever he said that he believes his starting quarterback is one of those three, but essentially one of the two between Pickett and Rudolph. He put all those things combined. It tells me they're not going to be players for Fields or Wilson or a top draft pick.
I agree. Now, obviously, that could change. He could have, he did leave himself kind of, I guess, enough of an escape route, especially because, look, we don't, until Mason Rudolph resigns, he's not signed.
Sure. And if you want to try to map out a scenario in which something could dramatically change, it would probably be they lose Rudolph, they go quarterback exploring, and something kind of falls into their lap that they can't turn down.
Right.
That's, I guess, the one way I could see something happening. But again, I mean, what is your confidence level on them being able to re-sign Mason Rudolph, bring him back?
I feel probably about 80% sure that will happen.
Okay, I'm about the same. I'm expecting Rudolph to be back. I'll put it that way. Not going to guarantee it. Obviously, he will look around and leverage that opportunity at the least to see what the free agent market says. But I think he will be back,
unless he's just really totally unrealistic. And that, the only way that happens if he gets blown away by an offer somewhere else where he knows too that he's going to walk in that door and be a number one. He doesn't want to get Mitch Trubisky, right? Where signed for $7-8 million, and then the draft rolls around and we got a new kid in here.
Right.
That way where, we told you one thing, but we got our franchise quarterback here early in the draft.
Yeah. You don't want to go to a Denver and they trade up and go get one of those top quarterbacks, and you're basically just keeping the seat warm for Drake May or whoever the name is.
All right, you feel confident that Mason Rudolph's market value is less than $10 million.
Yeah, I think at this point, I know we talked about different options whenever he was on that real hot streak, whenever Pittsburgh was winning, and there's a quarterback tax, and these guys do get paid more than you would maybe think, maybe more than their actual value is. But I would probably still say it's going to be under 10 million.
Yeah, I would agree.
And just to go back to that comment I finally found on Tomlin talking about coordinators and quarterbacks, the question was, when you're looking for a coordinator, how much is it based on trying to get the best out of your quarterback or Kenny Pickett? And Tomlin's answer is, quote, "It's a significant component of it. The game is quarterback driven. Offenses are quarterback driven. And so their expertise in that area is a significant component of the search from my perspective." And so, again, I think the obvious answer, and again, most OCs have this background to one degree or another. I think the next OC will have a pretty hefty quarterback coaching background.
All right, what happens if you miss here between Pickett and Rudolph?
You're finding a quarterback in 2025. We're talking about the class of 2025.
Right, I agree.
That's plain and simple how this thing goes. And I do have a concern that's where this thing is going to go. But we'll see. We'll see how Pickett looks, and we'll see how Rudolph looks, and go from there.
I mean, the only other option here would be to go after a Cousins, to go after, I think Russell Wilson's definitely seen his better days, and Cousins for that matter as well too. I think you could still win some games with Cousins if he stayed healthy and all. And I know a lot of people bring up Justin Fields, but Justin Fields feels like somebody too that's more of, we'd like to see a little bit more. And then once again, if you traded for a guy like Justin Fields, you'd have to turn around and consider picking up that 5th-year option on him and guaranteeing that money just to make it worth whatever you'd have to give up to get him. So it feels like you'd be committing to another if come for a couple more years and at a lot more substantial rate too, because of the 5th-year option being attached to him.
Yeah, I just don't see that being the way, because if you trade for Fields, like, he's your starter. You can't
Right.
There's no competition. There's no, okay, be the backup Justin. You're trading, you're making that kind of move for a guy like that. He's your clear cut week one starter. And that would just go counter to what Mike Tomlin just said.
Basically, what they've got themselves in is they've got themselves in a hole right now with selecting Pickett in the first round, and either needing him to become a franchise guy, or hope that Mason can bridge them to the next franchise guy.
Yeah, and again, I mean, ideally for them, Pickett turns the corner and becomes the guy he was drafted to be. That's their intent. That's why he's quarterback one. And let's hope the new OC can do it, and a fresh start in a new year can do that. And again, we barely got to see Pickett post Canada. We got to see it for a game and a half. He played really well against the Bengals. He gets hurt in the first half against Arizona, and then it doesn't take another snap the rest of the way. So in fairness and grace to him, we really don't have a lot of information on what Pickett can look like post Canada. I don't like to blame the whole, Pickett struggles on Canada. I think it's kind of lazy and just too broad. But half the reason why they fired Canada was probably to see how Pickett would look with a new OC in there, just a different guy calling the plays. And they never really got that opportunity.
And here's the thing too: after the 2024 season, come May of 2025, you have to make a decision on Kenny Pickett's fifth-year option.
Right. And that'll be based if 2024 goes well, then they'll pick it up. If it doesn't, then they won't. I think that decision will be pretty obvious by that point.
You would hope that there's no gray area there.
Yeah, if there's gray area, it's typically a bad thing. If you're not, if you're not sure, if you're always asking, are you the franchise guy? You're probably not the franchise guy.
And the only way you get to that point where he would have to obviously play a lot and show you a lot in 2024.
Sure, absolutely. And so that, again, so you're with me. They're going to make every attempt to re-sign Rudolph and let those guys truly just battle in training camp.
Yeah, and then it'd be interesting to see what else gets added to the room, but that will play out.
All right, jumping off of that, those were the big things. Tomlin's status, reconfirming that, the OC situation, the quarterback situation, everything else felt less significant. Speaking of fifth-year options, although Mike Tomlin did not explicitly say it, based on his comments about Najee Harris when asked about his fifth-year option, which will be due in May, I'm of the belief they will exercise and pick up that fifth-year option on Najee Harris.
Yeah, it was a short answer overall, but I think it speaks volumes of what they think about him. Trying to find out he says, man, he's been what we needed him to be. He says, I read a stat. I think, he's won a 1,000-yard rusher 3 straight years, and how scarce that is. And I just think that speaks to his consistency, availability. He's been really solid. So I don't know how you can, one paragraph answer there, but you have to come away with that thinking that they will exercise his fifth-year option by the May deadline. Here's, to me, now that it feels like that's more of a definitive and going to happen. Here's what my suggestion would be for them. If you're to the point where you're confident with him moving forward for the next couple of years, because look, if you pick up the fifth-year option, that guarantees his $6 million salary for 2025, right?
Right.
He's already probably pretty aggravated at the running market and all that goes along with it. I would consider going ahead and starting the clock on him, meaning do what the Panthers did with Christian McCaffrey several years ago. Now, I'm not talking about making him the highest paid running back in the NFL or anything like that, but I would go ahead and see about seeing if I could get him signed to a multi-year deal this offseason, and essentially starting the clock on him. Instead of waiting until the salary to kick up to over $6 million next year, you already have a firm basis of what his ceiling would be at his base salary and 2024, what the fifth-year option amount would be in 2025, and what potentially a franchise tag on him would be in 2026. So if you already have a loose idea what the ceiling is for him to earn over the next 3 years, and if you're confident that he's going to be your guy for those next 3 years, go ahead and get a deal done with him.
Question is, what does the framework of that deal look like from a money standpoint? And I just feel like so many teams have regretted doing those second deals or extensions or, free agent contracts with the position. I know he's been probably the most durable running back in football since he entered the league, but I feel like just so many teams end up regretting those contracts.
Sure. And look, you're talking
right. Yeah, I feel like we switched roles over here.
I mean, you're talking to somebody, you're talking to somebody here who's pro fungible running back here, but it's not my analysis and what I think this team wants to do need to be separated.
Sure. No, of course. So what do you think an extension would look like monetarily?
Well, let's look at what did we say his fifth-year option number is going to be?
6.2, 6.5, over 6.
All right, so let's put that. All right, he is scheduled to earn in 2024 a base salary of 2.439. So let's call that 2.44 million there. The fifth-year option amount. Oh, let me find it specifically here, real quick here.
Because you're right, that'll set kind of the floor of a contract extension, I assume.
6.66 million for a fifth-year option in 2024. So we got 2.4 and 6.6. That puts us at a total of about 9 million total for the 2 years.
Rounding, essentially, yes.
All right, and what is the? Oh, if I can find it here real quick, the franchise tag. These are never where I can find them real quick. The franchise tag number alone for 2024. Now, obviously, this would escalate. Would be 12.4 million for the running back position. So let's bump that up to just astronomical 15 million. All right, on the safe side. So where were we? 15 million plus, what did we say? 10 million combined with the other two?
You said 9 million.
Okay, 9 million. So 24 million over three years is what you would kind of set the ceiling on him as. In other words, say, look, if you don't take this deal, this is, if you reach all 3 of these years, this is what you're going to potentially earn if we don't do a deal with you. And that's best case scenario for you. That's this year's contract. That's the fifth-year option. And then that's you getting the franchise tag in 2026.
Right. Shouldn't Pittsburgh then have to beat that by a little bit to make it worth Harris's while to do the deal now? Or is it the knowledge of just getting the deal done now as opposed to hoping those things all take place?
Sure. But there's also the guaranteed money aspect of him getting the deal done now. So let's even say it was 28 million over 3 years.
Okay. Something like that.
And with 12 to 13 million of it that he can earn right out of the chute between base salary and signing bonus. Probably wouldn't be that high, but I'm just using that as a ceiling.
Would this be 3 new years or 2 new years? Would this just wipe out his 2024 salary and that would be the first year of the new deal, or how do I look at this?
Well, what you could do is just leave his salary alone for this year. Give him, I don't know, $12 million signing bonus.
But does the contract run through? How long would it run through? if he signed it this offseason.
Well, what I would do is I would make it like a 2-year extension or 3
okay,
year,
that's what I'm saying.
Or a 3-year extension.
But like 2 additional years, so sign him through 2025 and through 2026.
Hold on a minute here. Let me look at his deal.
Yeah, I'm just trying because he signed. He's under contract through 2024. He's got the 5th-year option.
Well, ideally, what you're going to do would probably try to do this before the 5th-year option goes on the books. In other words, within the next several weeks. Now, you could obviously do it after. There's nothing saying you don't. But what I would suggest is before you get to the actual drop dead date in May of picking up his 5th-year option, just like the Panthers did with Christian McCaffrey, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it could be a 3-year extension. All right. I mean, but at least a 2-year extension that would keep him under contract through at least 2026.
Okay.
Now, the only benefit of adding the more years on is you're locking them up, and it gives you a longer period of time to because you can account for the signing bonus over a max of 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got this done before the 5th year or even after the 5th-year option was exercised, then you could do a 3 additional years on top of 2025. Or do this before, that's semantics here.
Yeah, I was just curious to see.
We're going too far down the rabbit hole.
There's no such thing as that on this show
for us. But long story short, what I would think that if they're committed to him and committed to picking up this 5th-year option with him, just go ahead and get a deal done with him now.
Mm-hmm.
And then start the clock on the proration of the signing bonuses and all.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, that makes sense. I like Najee, and if he wants to do that, then you explore it. You're
not going to significantly raise his 4.151 cap number in 2024 by getting a deal done with him now.
Sure, I understand that.
Now, is that the right move? Well, look, I mean, the moment that you exercise that 5th-year option, that $6.66 million for 2025 becomes fully guaranteed.
Right. That's a recent change under the new CBA,
right.
Correct?
Right. So, I mean, you're already committing to paying him $9 million over the course of 2024 and 2025. By picking up that 5th-year option. So why not get the deal done with him? If you're going to commit to him, especially with his age, start the clock on him.
Yeah, earlier than later. Then plus, if you don't get the deal, then there might be, does he do a hold-in? Does he make a stink about it? That whole thing, and you just get it done, and it's done and taken care of. Right.
So, I mean, once again, like you said, we're kind of switching roles here, but I have to look at this as okay. Well, they're going to commit to him, so whether I like the decision or not, how do I foresee them moving forward with it?
Right, makes sense. So we'll see the May deadline what they do, if they do anything before it or not. But either way, point is they have some future plans for Najee Harris. It appears.
Sure.
All right, moving on. Broderick Jones, what is his future plan? Is it left side or right side? Mike Tomlin said undecided right now. So I would like to see him go back at left tackle. I think even Jones made a reference to, he'll do what the team tells him to do, of course, but acknowledging left tackle is his natural spot. So let's go put him back at left tackle, Dave.
Well, what this has opened themselves up for is we'll see what we can get in the draft.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that, but what is more important, the potential draft pick and the guy down the road, or the dude you just traded up for in drafting? I think you take care of him first, and then you figure out the rest.
Yeah, but what if somehow you get someone that you really like that can play left tackle?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that,
but that's the way this thing is likely headed with him. and it's probably the best decision of all is to move him to left tackle. But I understand what I'm getting at is I understand why he did not come out right yesterday and say he is going to move to left tackle.
Sure. I didn't know if I expected that. My hope is that eventually the conclusion will be for him to go to left tackle.
Sure. And I think that's the end result. All I'm saying is I understand why he did not come out and say, yep, Broderick Jones is our new left tackle.
Right. Yeah. Understood. I get that. But hopefully, just because, Jones struggled with pass protection. He was not good in pass pro the last month. I don't know if that's a rookie wall thing. I don't know if that's defenses, pass rushers getting tape on him, or if it's just, I can't explain exactly why he was struggling so much all of a sudden, but he was. And I'm not saying left tackle is going to be the cure-all to those things, but it's going to help. It's not going to hurt.
Undecided as of yet. Obviously, he has capabilities in that area, but he was more than capable at right tackle as well too. So he just all that means is we've given ourselves some wiggle room if something comes about in free agency or the draft that we view as a better option at left tackle.
And listen, if they do move Jones to left tackle, I don't know who the right tackle is going to be. Won't be a core four. Very unlikely will be Dan Moore. It's going to be somebody not on this roster unless somebody like a Dylan Cook were to really emerge here in his second year with the team.
Yeah, look, he had a nice. He only dressed for one game, right? And don't forget about Spencer too. What they potentially think, because he is the one that actually dressed ahead of Dylan Cook.
Yeah, but he was a little more versatile and could play some center. And he played right tackle, but I think he's more of an interior guy. And
regardless, between those two, you can't pencil them in.
Yeah.
Right now. I have a feeling if this doesn't come as a cast off free agent, somebody that they've had their eye on, let's say 3 or 4 years ago during the pre-draft process or something like that. If it's not that, then you're probably looking at first 4-round draft pick being dedicated to that.
Yeah, and potentially I would not be mad for another high draft pick to get you a J.C. Latham from Alabama or somebody like that to just, put in on the right side and go maul, because they did like Jones run blocking on the right side, even with his pass pro struggles to do was getting after it in the run game. And that's attractive. That's kind of your run sided dominant direction. So there's value in that standpoint. But I just think, Jones' best spot is left tackle.
All right. All that will come out in the wash here by the time the draft gets done.
Right. All right. What else from Mike Tomlin? What else caught your attention from the presser that he held yesterday?
Cole Holcomb. When's Cole Holcomb going to be ready?
Timetable appears to be training camp, but not a lot of, commitment on that. Obviously, he's still going through his rehab. And do we even know exactly what the injury was? They just said knee, severe knee. We know it was bad. It wasn't good. But actually, I don't think I even know the actual details of the knee injury.
I don't think we know either. All I know is the tape says not great, Bob.
Yeah, not great indeed. What else here from Mike Tomlin? Just kind of scrolling on through.
What'd you think about his comments about Patrick Peterson?
I don't think it was a negative comment, because he was asked about kind of the future of Peterson and kind of deflected and just said we're at the infancy of our planning. I think that's true. I mean, their season just ended Monday. They got to work through things. They have not decided and collaborated, him and Omar and Art Rooney to figure out their exact plan. So I didn't take that as an alarm bell for him. It wasn't an endorsement, obviously. It would have been, the odds of him staying would have gone up had Tomlin said, we love Patrick Peterson. We hope he comes back. We're excited for him coming back. But I don't know if it was an alarm bell for him potentially not returning.
Well, I mean, he's under contract, so.
But there's the roster bonus they got to.
Right. But here's the thing. Would you bet everything you have based on what little Mike Tomlin did and did not say? Would you bet everything you have that Patrick Peterson will be on this roster?
No, I wouldn't go that far.
That's where I'm going.
But I would bet your house and not mine. That's kind of my level of confidence right now.
Thanks. My wife would appreciate that.
You're welcome.
You do it. I wouldn't. I think it makes sense that we had this conversation about what he's scheduled to earn versus what he brings to the room from a veteran leadership standpoint and all. But once again, I think Mike Tomlin left himself a little bit of wiggle room there.
Yeah, he did for sure. There was not some sort of great commitment to Patrick Peterson, but I do think for the reasons we talked about before, he will return. Anything else? I mean, those are kind of the big things. Everything else was smaller on Porter, on Freiermuth, on Tomlin's own
What about
intensity that's grown over time.
DeMarvin Leal and
Ah,
Presley Harvin III?
yeah, I forgot about those things. Yeah, Liao basically saying he's got to play better. He's got to figure stuff out. And then if he does, he'll get the chance to play. But you talk about disappointments, and especially with an aging Hayward and Ogunjobi in his 30s, there's just no D-line depth at defensive end for this team right now. And to say the least, as Tomlin indicated, Harvin. Well, actually, Tomlin was wrong. He said that Harvin was not consistent down the stretch. He was consistent. He was just consistently miserable, which is not the consistency you're looking for.
Look, we talked about him most of the season there, and Tomlin was also wrong in saying I acknowledge that Presley Harvin wasn't consistent enough, particularly down the stretch. You can remove particularly down the stretch.
I thought he was decent the first 6 weeks of the year, especially in those coffin corner, pin deep situations. I thought he was actually pretty good, but he was a wreck from the last half of the season on.
Plain and simple, this team needs a new punter in the story.
Torrey Taylor, you are a Steeler. Welcome to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Don't have to change your uniform. I don't know if it'll be him, but they need a punter. They need a field flipper. I mean, it's been 3 years of Harvin. The results have been middling at best. Just time to move on.
Obviously, the praise that he gave Keanu Benton, not unexpected. The same with Joey Porter Jr. What else did he have to say that was relevant, worth talking about?
About George Pickens, his maturity. It has been in all areas in terms of him growing, quote, in football and in life. But there's a lot of meat on that bone, and I'm excited about continuing to be a component of that process with him, end quote.
All right. What about the health of this team heading into the offseason that he got out of the way early?
Yeah, pretty good overall. It was a little kick in the pants to hear Tomlin say had Pittsburgh beaten Buffalo that TJ Watt probably would have played against Baltimore. That'd have been a fun storyline to have.
Yeah, I wish he wouldn't have told us that.
Yeah, just kind of twist the knife a little bit more, Mike Tomlin. Other than that, said there's going to be some, standard procedures and cleanup type stuff. No major surgeries expected. Tomlin did not give the list of names, obviously, but we can assume somebody, we're speculating, but Najee Harris, Isaac Seumalo, Landon Roberts, and probably some others we don't even any clue about, but those are potential guys who could get some cleanups done this offseason.
Yeah, I think obviously the one to watch is the rehabilitation of Cole Holcomb, and we won't know more about that till later in the offseason. But will he be ready for OTAs? If not, will he be ready by the start of camp? A lot of poor guy came off of a foot injury the season before, and then now a knee injury, and you kind of wonder about that inside linebacker room.
Yeah, they were a cursed room. Quan tore his Achilles for the second time in his career. Roberts, I don't even know how Roberts played the last couple of games of the season. But groin, I'm sure, was probably still an issue. The pack, he's playing with one arm out there. Dude's a warrior. But yeah, that room got the crap kicked out of them this year.
True or false? The Steelers need to address the inside linebacker within the first 4 rounds of the 2024 NFL draft.
I've spoken about the need to finally invest draft picks in the position, but I just think given all the other needs and assuming Holcomb can return and you have Roberts under contract and another year from Mark Robinson, and maybe you bring Quan back in camp just to see how he looks, I'll say false to that, just given there's so many other needs elsewhere.
I'm on the other side of the fence as you. I say true.
Well, you only have 4 picks here. You got center, you got tackle, you got corner, safety, defensive line, slot receiver. I mean, you got a lot of needs, and something's going to have to give. I mean, ideally, I would like to, but I just think your hierarchy of needs, you got a half dozen things to look at before that.
I think you got to figure something out. And look, I mean, you said it. You got a lot of different areas that you want to throw darts at here, in the draft here. Look, this team has a first, as we sit right now, this team has a first round pick, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, and 2 fourth-round picks.
Okay, where's that extra fourth come from? Is that
the Rams?
In the Dotson deal, or is this a Robinson thing?
Was that that was the Robinson thing, wasn't it?
Was it?
Or was it?
I don't think they picked up a fourth from Robinson. That was something. It was a smaller level deal. They were just a salary dump. Is this a Dotson pick swap kind of thing? Maybe.
What was the Dotson? Maybe
because there were a couple day 3 and like 24 and 25 pick swaps. Maybe that's it. I don't have the details of the deal in front of me, but I'm thinking it's more likely Dotson than it is from the Robinson trade. But I could be wrong.
Okay, yeah, it was traded. The Rams traded its 2024 fourth-round draft pick and its 2025 fifth-round draft pick to the Steelers in exchange for Dotson, and the Steelers' 2024 fifth-round draft pick and the Steelers' 2025 sixth-round draft pick. So they got the extra fourth via Dotson. That's right.
But they don't currently have a fifth-round pick in 2024 then. Is that correct?
They do not have a fifth-round pick.
That's what went to the Rams as part of that Dotson deal. Okay, gotcha. So you still have, I mean, it's better to have the 2 fourth-round picks, but you still have 4 picks there, I guess, in your, what would it be? 5 picks in the first 5 rounds still.
You have 5 picks within the first 120 picks of the draft, it looks like.
Gotcha. So again, a lot of needs in free agency. We'll fill some of those things, obviously. In Pittsburgh, I'm sure we'll, and this may be a good time to talk about salary cap updates and space and where this team kind of stands on the onset of the 2024 offseason. So it is the offseason when Dave Bryan puts up that Steelers football with the reflection there in the photo of the article of the salary cap update. So give us the snapshot, the skinny on what fans have to know about Pittsburgh's cap situation, Dave.
All right. First and foremost, what about Cam Hayward?
Not taking a pay cut, according to Cam Hayward. He said, screw the people, taking a pay cut. That was on his Not Just Football podcast. And so that's really in line with what we talked about on Wednesday's show, that not going to 100% rule that out pre-Hayward comments, but a restructure and just reducing his base salary, turning that into a signing bonus was more likely than him just simply taking less money.
Right. He's going to be back, right?
Yes. He confirmed he's not retiring, and I think Pittsburgh will certainly welcome him back. This past year was just a tough year from an injury standpoint. Even when hurt, the dude still played good run defense. At the very least, he's still a great run defender. The pass rush will return. He just had no explosiveness this year. He couldn't fire off the football. Not going to make his full rushing tackle.
We said he couldn't run, and he said yesterday he couldn't run.
Yeah, I heard that comment. Yeah, I thought of you whenever I heard him make that comment. Yeah, I mean, the guy couldn't. I mean, just a crappy year. So you just move on. And listen, the guy sounds like he wants to play past 2024. He's not necessarily calling 2024 a swan song. So we'll see. But if he gets an extension, then he'll be under contract potentially through 2025.
All right. He says he's not up for taking a pay cut. He said that he wants to return. He says he wants the option of potentially playing more than just 1 year. There's only one way to lower his cap number, and that is with an extension like we talked about the other day. Probably something with no new money in the first year. You just move money around, take a good chunk of that $16 million, turn it into a signing bonus, add 2 years at whatever base value you want to attach to those things. And I think that you can get something done there that ends up lowering his cap number by $9.5 million. I think that's something that we should expect to happen. It's just a matter of how far down do you want to lower his cap number, and what you want those 2025 and 2026 base salaries to look like. So, it's hard to exactly predict what that's going to look like, but I would say that's the rough framework when it comes to that. All right, as far as this team's cap situation goes, first and foremost, Joel Corey thinks that the cap number for the season is going to be around $242.5 million. So we'll use that as a starting point. This team, as it looks like right now, will carry over $2.34 million in unused salary cap space from 2023. If you look at because of this team, we didn't tell the people about the futures guys.
Yep, I had that on my list here. 17 players signed to reserve future contracts, many of them on the team's practice squad, but some outsiders as well. Probably the biggest outsider name added was former Saints wide receiver Marquez Callaway, who had a really good, I think, 2020 season with the Saints. He was a James Washington type I compared him to coming out of Tennessee. Really did not play this past year. So that's a name to watch for if he makes it to training camp.
Right. So the byproduct of them signing all those reserve futures deals is now that you have gives you a rule of 51 to work with during the offseason here. And when you look at that rule of 51, now I did not I probably should have, but I didn't. I did not factor in the Dan Moore proven performance escalator bump that he's going to get at the start of the new league year. That's going to cause him to increase to like another $2 million. So let's go ahead and use a rough figure of $2 million. What is the exact difference? Let's just use that $2 million as a loose figure here. This team, as we sit right now with the current rule of 51 that they have, along with the expected proven performance escalator jump for Dan Moore, based on a $242 million $0.5 million cap number for the league in 2024. That puts this team around 17.1, 17.3 million over the cap. Okay.
Which sounds scary, but please calm us all down. They're driving off of roads and bridges and all that, Dave.
Right. All right. First and foremost, Allen Robinson is due a $10 million base salary in 2024. Barring him taking that thing damn near down to the minimum or thereabouts, he's going to be out the door, right?
Right.
All right. There's you $10 million prior to roster displacement. So I took your 17, let's call it a 17.3 number that we're dealing with to get compliant here. 17.3, I just decreased that by roughly 10 million after roster displacement. So now we're down to 7.3 roughly over the cap. Chukwuma Okorafor, doesn't sound like he's going to be back, does it?
He's gone.
Sound like he can't wait to get out the door. Terminating his contract would free up $8.75 million in 2024 salary cap space prior to his displacement. So after displacement of both those guys, bada bing, bada boom, you are cap compliant, Alex Kozora.
Right. Congratulations. There's confetti raining down in my house.
All right. Now, you don't just need to be cap compliant, right? You need to have some room to work with in free agency. I theorize that this team will want to open up the start of the new league year with, I don't know, about $10 or $12 million in available salary cap space to work with. That's why if you can get something done with Cameron Hayward's contract early in the offseason as opposed to later, to, let's say, free up $9.5 million in salary cap space, that would work beautifully into the plan of having $10 to $12 million in salary cap space to work with during free agency. So there is another direction that you could see this team go between now and the middle of March when it comes to freeing up cap space. Some other guys that I think you have to have discussions about. Larry Ogunjobi, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Cole, and Patrick Peterson. All four of those guys have roster bonuses due right after the start of the new league year. Will all four of them be out the door? Probably not all four. Larry Ogunjobi, if you cut Larry Ogunjobi, what does that do to that room?
Yeah, again, the depth in Pittsburgh at D tackle, D end, because Benton's going to play down the middle most of the time, is really weak right now.
So you better have a good plan if you do ship Larry Ogunjobi. He is a guy that you better have a discussion about, plain and simple. Trubisky, if you get Mason Rudolph done, he's going to be out the door. That will free you up $2.94 million prior to roster displacement there. Might as well call that another $2 million saved there.
Doesn't that just wash though? Because you're working under the assumption Rudolph is re-signed. Who's going to add a cap number to that?
Sure. I mean, that's fair.
Okay. How much would a reasonable interpretation of Hayward? How much would that save for 2024? How much would that free up?
About $9.5 million.
Okay. So if you did that, you're already looking at, almost 10 million. You're actually over $10 million in terms of cap space right then and there.
Sure. And that gets you through free agency.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
All right. So, but long story short, I imagine there's conversations going on about Ogunjobi, Trubisky, Cole, Patrick Peterson, because of them having roster bonuses due. There's conversation about what to do with Cameron Hayward's contract and when to do that. The other thing out there that this team can do, and I expect them to do at some point, is Alex Highsmith is the perfect candidate for a contract restructure this offseason. On the heels of him signing that new deal, you can free up a little more than $7.2 million there with that. This past off season, we went into it thinking, what are they going to have to do? Would they have to do? They did a contract restructure with Minkah Fitzpatrick early in the off season. The only question was, would they have to touch TJ Watt's contract prior to the start of the 2023 regular season? Well, they ended up not having to touch that. Good on them. Mm-hmm. I'm 80% sure they're going to have to do Alex Highsmith's restructure that. And him alone. There's really not really any good. There's guys that you could go to if you got in emergency situations to restructure their deal to free up cap space. But because of TJ Watt being later in his contract now, and you already doing Minkah Fitzpatrick last year, and with Alex Highsmith being the fresh new big deal on the blocks, it makes perfect sense that he becomes the perfect candidate. So will that happen before the start of the new league year? Will it happen before the start of the regular season? I don't know, but I would look forward to something being done there.
That feels like more of a June, July type of thing than it will be a before, March 13th kind of thing. But as you said, we'll see.
Right. Now, there's obviously attrition that will happen in the rule of 51. What's going to happen with guys like, let's just pull out a couple of names here. Keanu Neal, DeMonte Casey. It feels like Landon Roberts is going to be back, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. I'd be very surprised if he was cut.
Nate Herbig.
He'll be back.
You think he's going to be back? Some of these other guys that at least you would think would survive middle of March, right? For sure.
Right. But to your point, just simply cutting Allen Robinson, cutting Chukwuma Okorafor, and restructuring Kim Hayward takes you from $17 million over the cap to more than $10 million under the cap. Just those three moves alone.
All right, and that gives you that $10 to $12 million range. Plus, you might have another guy comes off the roster here,
Sure.
Somebody that frees you up, that gets you in the area of $10 to $12 million of available cap space to work with in free agency. And people might say, "Man, $10 to $12 million don't sound like a lot," but when you factor in top 51 roster displacement and first year cap hits of anybody that you go get. Look, they're probably going to try to, like you said, they're probably going to try to re-sign Mason Rudolph. That might end up washing with Mitch Trubisky, what mm-hmm. his cap number, is scheduled to be for 2024. So that might be a wash there. You're probably going to want to try to maybe do something with Miles Killebrew, right?
Right. There are some free agents to bring back. No one super high level, but Killebrew is one, maybe a Boykin, probably somebody else, maybe a couple other names on low level deals. In terms, this also, your number bakes in restricted free agents, or how are we looking on the restricted exclusive rights free agents?
Exclusive guys aren't a problem because you're tendering them at minimum salaries. So
Okay.
there's nothing really to lose to worry about cap space expenditure wise when it comes to them. Now, when you look at the restricted free agents, we saw the way this team treated the restricted free agents last year, right? Not tendering any of them, right?
I think so. Who are though? Your number does not assume those tenders will be picked up because we don't know what level they're going to be. So who are the restricted free agents? Who even are the exclusive rights guys? Just to get a lay of the land in terms of those names.
All right, Dylan Cook is the only exclusive rights guy that you have to worry about. So you just bring him, you tender him the 1 year minimum. Yep. Contract there. There's nothing lost there. Your other guys, Godwin, Igwebuike, you're not going to restricted tender that guy.
No.
If you try to bring him back, you're going to bring him back on a 2 year deal where his cap hits super low. For if indeed you do anything more, what you do is you go to him and offer him a 1 year veteran
minimum deal
benefit deal. Chappelle Russell, who probably people didn't even know is still on the roster on IR, you're not going to do anything there.
Correct.
The only other guy, Renell Wren, who's also on the IR, you're not going to do anything there. Right. The only other guy is Christian Kuntz, restricted. Okay.
And you can do probably just original round or 2 year deal. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're comfortable with him, you do a 2 year deal that keeps his 2024 cap number down. I don't think you want to go out and give him a original round tender. I mean,
because they're getting expensive these days. These tenders are not cheap. Yeah, I think you're right. 2 year deal is probably the way to go with Kuntz.
So that I didn't even mention the restricted or the exclusive rights free agents because I don't think anything notable gets done there. Once again, if you bring back Igwebuike, that's probably going to be on either a minimum value deal let's see, he is restricted, so
you just wouldn't tender him and then sign him back to a 1 year benefit deal.
Yeah,
like Pierre last year, I think was similar to that.
Exactly. And Kuntz, I think what you try to do is do a 2 year deal on him.
Yeah, before even the tender deadline. Like he never hits free agency. You just do a contract, the tender goes away. So it's good to know, though, because last year the tenders, there were some restricted guys that were notable we were talking about. This year, though, that conversation really is not going to take place.
Yeah, and like you said, that number's getting up there. You better have a damn good reason to restricted tender a guy. And other than Kuntz, you don't have that problem.
Right. So important. It's not impacting things, but it's important context to the overall cap situation.
All right. Now, obviously, I lay out every year the future cost involved down the road past the start of the new league year. When you look at the rookie draft pool offset of roughly $3.9 million. That's a cost that you got to be able to afford. Your 52nd and 53rd player, that's almost $1.6 million in cap space. Your practice squad, that's $4 million you got to be able to afford. I built in a $2 million IR buffer for the start of the season for any of the guys that got to go on IR. Your projected mandatory workout bonus placeholder charge, which is less than $1 million. And how much will this team want to take into the regular season as available salary cap space? Last year, I worked with a number of $9 million. Based on the previous two off seasons, they ended up going into this past season, I think, with around $6.3 million in available salary cap space. So as a placeholder, I have $6 million. I've lowered that down to $6 million this year. You add all that up, 6, 2, 8, 12, 16, 17 and a half. You're looking at about $18 million at some point closer to the start of the season, you have to be able to afford.
Yeah, not a small number, but again, you have the Highsmith restructure, and I don't know what other options you have to get there, but you can probably
attrition from guys that don't make the 53-man roster. Once again, the Highsmith restructure will help out in all like that. And then how much unused from unrestricted free agency is left over at that point. So I mean, it's going to be a chore on the back half of the offseason, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, these are fixed costs that are associated with this thing every year, right?
Right. And they plan this stuff out and it's all baked in. I'm sure there's a direction. What is your expectation, just loosely, in terms of how aggressive they'll be in free agency? Will it be like the last 2 years where for Pittsburgh standards, it was pretty aggressive, or do you think it's going to be a little more mellow this year, smaller contracts, fewer people being brought in?
It will be, well, you got to remember, a big chunk of what they did last year revolved around Larry Ogunjobi, their own, right?
Yeah, but there was, like, say, Amalu came in, you signed Peterson. I mean, you lost Cam Sutton, but there were some decently sized free agents who were brought in.
Yeah, but as far as first year cap numbers went and all like that, I mean, say Amalu was a big one. I envision it being similar to last year or slightly lower. They're not going to go hog wild.
Right. They never do. But yeah,
No.
But do you think it could still be similar where they're going to sign maybe 2 or 3 starting level free agents or guys that can be in that mix to start for some decent money?
Sure. I think that's possible. And then obviously as you work your way into the offseason, you'll have those veteran benefit guys or them extreme low level guys and things of that nature. They're not going to go out, I don't think, and sign the league's top 1 or 2 free agent tackles. They're not, name another position.
Yeah, top corner that's out there.
Right.
It's not going to happen. And also, I mean, obviously, again, as you said, the cap is malleable in first year cap hits. But if you tried, like, how could you even try to shoehorn a Kirk Cousins into your team contractually?
It would be very difficult.
I mean, I'm sure you could do it.
You could. There's always a way to do it. Keep that in mind. There's always a way to do it. It's just to what degrees do you want to go about doing that?
Yeah, the cost of not being able to add elsewhere to your roster, probably, because, I mean, you can restructure deals, but it's not going to be cheap. It's going to be tough to do. And that's another, Russell, I don't know. They say Wilson's going to play for like the minimum. I don't think he's going to go play for the minimum, even though I know Denver's on the hook for all that money. He's still going to get paid what he wants to get paid. I mean, that's my interpretation of how Wilson will address his likely free agency.
Russell Wilson ain't going to play for no minimum, I don't think. There ain't no way.
I've heard people say that, though. Like, he'll take $1 million because he's going to get paid by Denver. It's like, he'll take both. He's going to double dip, man. He's a starting quarterback. You're going to get paid.
We'll see. Your value is your value, and you should stick to your value.
Yeah, but either way, again, point is, based on Tomlin's comments, but just even have the thought, even if they wanted to go get a top quarterback, it would be, or a veteran quarterback, it'd be tough to do.
And look, once again, this is, I mean, the season just ended. So this is an outlook that's very, very loosely based until some of these dominoes like a Cam Hayward and some of these, we get a finalized, we know who's gone from the contract terminations. And keep in mind that as the offseason progresses, this team's probably going to want to extend Pat Freiermuth, right? We talked about, we'll see what happens with Najee Harris. If you sign both those guys to contract extensions, their 2024 cap numbers will slightly increase, not astronomical, but it's enough where you have to be able to accommodate it,
Sure. Yeah, those things all get factored in. So we'll keep tracking it. I'm sure you'll have another post. When do you think your next cap update will come? A little while from now, probably, once things start getting into motion. Unless
we have a significant update to the rule of 51, meaning something happened with Cam Hayward's contract, an early offseason restructure for Highsmith, which I don't think is going to happen, but could happen, and contract terminations. I mean, those are the things that could significantly shape the rule of 51. So unless something like that happens, I'll just, there's probably not going to be a lot to pass along as far as updates go.
Gotcha. Can I take you down the rabbit hole too far? I know we already did that once today, but I'm going to do it one more time here in our very early offseason snapshot. Are there any potential come training camp trade candidates? Anybody who could get dealt away the way that Kendrick Green and Kevin Dotson were dealt away this past summer?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's look at,
and I know that's obviously dependent on free agency, who they bring in. When they, sign Nate Herbig and Isaac Seumalo, that's when you went, okay, Dotson's going to not be part of this 2023 roster, just a matter of when he gets moved and how he gets moved. So I know those things, there's a domino effect, but I'm just curious if you could just think. I don't have a particular name in mind as I kind of run through the roster in my head, but just curious to see where things might stand down the road.
I know there's going to be people to throw out there, trade Deontay Johnson, but they're not trading Deontay Johnson. I just don't see that.
No, those rumors have been around since the day he signed that contract extension. They're not going to deal him.
And if you don't deal Chukwuma Okorafor before you cut him, which once again, I mean, could it happen? I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's definitely not going to happen. I would be very surprised if they found a team. If they did find a team to take Chukwuma Okorafor off their hands before the time that his $4 million roster bonus is due in March, I can't see that being. Maybe you get your 5th round pick, out of that. But I mean, we're talking about him being gone anyway. So it's not anything that's going to, it's just how he's gone becomes the difference,
Right. I still don't see the trade value. I'll give you 2 names, and we're just spitballing names. I'm not trying to say this concretely. DeMarvin Leal, just as somebody may want to take on a cheap rookie contract. Maybe they have a better system that can make him work. It's not going to work in Pittsburgh. What happens to Dan Moore Jr. if they go draft at right tackle, if they go sign a tackle and move Jones to left tackle, and he's your starter without that versatility? They like Dan Moore. They appreciate his hard work. I still like Dan Moore more than 95% of Steelers Nation, but there may be some questions about a left tackle on the market that may have some sort of value.
Well, even with his proven performance escalator raise, he's not killing you and because of you having to protect yourself with at least guys with experience on the depth chart, and even if you come out of the draft with another tackle that you like and all like that, you'd have to get your doors blown off by somebody offering you something for him, which is not going to happen with him being in the final year of his deal. Right.
No, I agree. There's value in keeping Dan Moore for sure. But if he's only a backup left tackle and really can't play the right side, there is some limitations he has, because usually you want your backup offensive lineman to have that versatility, and it doesn't really seem like Moore has that.
If he ended up becoming a tradable guy, it would happen much in the same time frame that Kevin Dotson got shipped out.
Sure. Oh yeah, this is not happening March or April or anything like that. And again, they're going to have to probably add somebody to. Let's say they go sign a veteran tackle, or Dylan Cook emerges and has a really good year in Pittsburgh, and he can play both tackle spots. Things will have to happen for this to come up. But I'm just thinking, there's a plausible scenario, I think, in which that's at least a conversation.
I mean, who in their right mind would trade for Leal, give you anything of substance based on his tape?
I mean, it's going to be like a Kendrick Green deal. It's not going to be there's not going to be much substance to it, but maybe some team who was high on him in the draft. I mean, it's not working in Pittsburgh. I mean, so I think you at least the way that Kendrick Green didn't work in Pittsburgh, a 3rd round pick, and we tried it. It's not working out. Just some other team want to flip him for a 7th round pick.
All right, I'll throw one other name out there as an extreme hypothetical here. Let's say, because the conversation about Mason Cole's an interesting one. Look, he obviously the pushback is he should be gone, and he should be gone before that $1.5 million roster bonus is paid. But if you did cut him right out of shoot before the draft. What happens if you don't get a center that you like in the draft?
Sure. And typically this team will hold on to that veteran until they know they have a backup plan or another direction they can go. So I know people won't like it, but I can see Cole sticking around for longer than people think.
That's where I'm going here. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but don't be shocked if he survives the $1.5 million roster bonus. Okay. Now, let's say he does, for some reason, survive the middle of March. And then you get to the draft and you get a center early that you like. And then you go later on into the summer. Look, if you carry Mason Cole past the middle of March, you might as well carry him through the greater part of the summer. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
Now, you come out of preseason saying, man, this rookie center that we have, he's going to be our starter here. Then maybe you explore trading away Mason Cole to a team that loses a center or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Yeah. Wasn't he traded once? Was he traded from Arizona to Minnesota?
Seemed like
Am I getting that wrong? I think he was dealt. I know it doesn't mean much, but he actually has been traded before. At least I'm pretty sure earlier in his career before he went from Minnesota to
in
Pittsburgh.
March of 2021.
What did he get? What was the compensation?
Minnesota announced that it has added Mason Cole to the roster in a deal with Arizona. The Vikings sent a 6th-round pick in the 2021 draft to the Cardinals in return.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that's actually, a realistic scenario.
Because you need that cap space,
Yeah, it would free up. I can see that. You want to make sure you have a backup center at that point. Not quite sure who that would be. Maybe a Spencer Anderson can get some more work there or somebody else emerges. But yeah, I think, again, we're just speculating. We're way down the road, but that's plausible.
Right. So if you want to really realistically talk about anybody, and once again, this assumes he survives the middle of March. But if he does, then I think he becomes a candidate to potentially trade, depending on who you think your starting center will be for 2024.
Right. Because as you said, if you pick up his roster bonus, you're going to carry him through training camp. Why would you not do that? I mean, he's going to have experience. You never know, injuries can happen. You already paid the bonus. You carry him through at least through training camp.
Right. If he survives the middle of March, he's probably going to survive training camp.
At least getting to the end of training camp,
right.
And then you decide what happens from there. Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Well, do we have anything else here? I think Cam Hayward, I mentioned his pay cut. All right. I think before we do our reader emails, before we do our picks for this divisional weekend, this group of 8, let's hear from our friends, Dave, over at MyBookie.
Yeah, let's do that. Gear up, sports fans. NFL playoffs are here, and it's time to get in on the action with MyBookie. Don't just watch. Score big with exclusive boosted odds and huge prize contests that'll have you feeling the Super Bowl fever before it even hits. Whether you're a seasoned pro or ready to roll for the first time, MyBookie is your ticket to turning your sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. MyBookie has the largest online lineup of odds, contests, and Vegas-style casino games, making it your ultimate destination for all type of fun, 24/7, right at your own fingertips. If you've been waiting for the right time to get in on the action, the wait is over for you. Make your winning move today and sign up at MyBookie. Use promo code TERRIBLE. That's promo code TERRIBLE to claim your deposit up to $1,000. That's right. Promo code for TERRIBLE for an opportunity to boost your betting power right at sign up. Experience the thrill of sports betting right from the comfort of your own home, because with MyBookie, you can bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Join MyBookie today and be part of the winning team.
All right, Dave, no Pittsburgh to pick this week, but the divisional round marches on for 8 teams overall still to play in this divisional round, including Baltimore, San Francisco getting their first crack at participating. in this year's playoff. Let's make our picks.
All right. How about the Houston Texans on the road against the Baltimore Ravens? The Ravens, huge favorites in this, 9.5 points they are laying at home against the Texans.
Yeah, it's a big line. Been super impressed, of course, by C.J. Stroud, DeMeco Ryans. I just look at that Ravens defense, and the Texans have a run game. I just feel like the run game has not been strong enough. It's been maybe a bit better with Singletary. I'm going to go Baltimore, though.
What's the weather like going to be this weekend there too?
Good question. It's a snowstorm here. Got a good amount of snow this morning, but it might clear out by the weekend.
Yeah, I think I think what Houston has done has been super impressive and all. I worry about going on the road, a rookie quarterback, that defense of the Ravens, and having time to prepare here. I put it 9.5 though. That's
steep.
You know what? I've got to play catch up on you anyway. I sucked. You know what? Last week. I think the Ravens win this. Give me the Texans plus 9.5 though. I'll go the other side of the fence on you on that. The Green Bay Packers on the road against the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers laying 9.5 in this one.
One seats get 9.5. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Love, the way they took it to Dallas, I just think San Francisco is so strong, so well-rounded. Can somebody cover here? I'm going to take the 49ers. I'm going to be boring and chalk and take the one seats to win by double digits. Yeah,
I got to make up some ground on you. I'm going to have to go the other way. I think San Francisco wins this. Maybe they win it by 9. Give me the Packers plus 9.5 here. The Detroit Lions are hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This should be a fun game to watch. The Lions, 6.5 point home favorites I thought it was interesting. Who's their head coach? The Buccaneers.
Dan Campbell. Todd Bowles. Oh, yeah. I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Yeah, he was asked about getting his team ready for the elements and all like that. He had to politely say that the Lions play indoors. There, Lions laying 6.5 points at home against the Buccaneers. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for Detroit's success. It's been kind of a fun storyline to follow, especially now the Pittsburgh season is done. But give credit to Tampa Bay, man. No one talks about them. They took it to Philadelphia, who I know is crashing and burning and, a mess right now with their season over. But Bowles done a good job. That defense is solid. Lions may win. I'll take the Bucs to cover.
I'll take the Lions. I'll go the other side. I'll finally take the favorite to cover here. I'll lay the 6.5 points against Tampa Bay there. All right. How about the Buffalo Bills hosting the Kansas City Chiefs? This should be a good one to close out this week's games. The Bills laying 2.5 points against the Chiefs at home.
Yeah. I mean, Allen versus Mahomes, part 4 or whatever, part 6. I'm not even sure how many times they've met. It's been a pretty even series though. Yeah, this one's challenging for sure. At home, I think they're calling for more snow. I know they're calling for more shovelers in Buffalo right now. I'm going to go with the Bills.
You know what? I think the Bills have got together. If Josh Allen's on and you can't get the football away from him, that's going to be to me the big test. And I think Kansas City still, they've looked good on offense at times, but other times not so much. I wonder who's going to have the better defense here. Long story short, I think the Bills take them this time. This is the only one I think I will go with you on this weekend. I will take the Bills to lay the 2.5 points against the Chiefs.
All right, sounds good. No, we ran long today. We found a way to do almost 2 hours, even with nothing happening from a game preparation standpoint. But let's get to a couple of reader emails and close out today's show, Dave.
All right, let's see what we have in the email machine here. We will start with Larissa writes in, hard reset, ? David, Alex, thanks for the great coverage all year long. Entertaining, extensive analysis, and honesty. Love it. Out of the 2021 and 2022 first and second round draft picks, who do you think will be on the team the longest? Najee, Freiermuth, Kenny, or George Pickens? So of Najee, Freiermuth, Kenny Pickett, or George Pickens, who will be the last man standing?
It's a really good question. I don't have a great answer that comes to mind immediately. I will say Freiermuth as that, not that he's Heath Miller, but that Heath Miller career of just stays in that one city for his entire career, plays 10 plus years. We can just avoid those concussions. I'll go with Freiermuth.
That's where I'm leaning as well, too. Now, look, obviously, if Kenny turns things around and gets the fifth-year option picked up and you do a long-term deal with him after that, but there's too much if come when it's related to that. I still think George Pickens will end up not signing a second deal with the Steelers, at least where I sit here today, even though Najee could get a new deal here as early maybe as this offseason. Would he outlast Freiermuth? From where I am right now, I kind of doubt it. So Freiermuth would be my choice. The question goes on, if you personally were given the choice to hit a hard reset on the Steelers, would you do it? And if yes, how long would that kind of rebuild take? And would you build starting from a quarterback or build everything else around them first?
Well, I don't know exactly what hard reset means. I think you can talk about that in theory, but in practice, what does that look like? To try to better, to the best of my abilities, answer that question, I think at some point this team will have to go back to the draft and try to find its franchise quarterback again. Not going to be this year based on what they're likely to do, but if it was my choice, that's the direction I'm going to start really looking pretty heavily in.
All right, but I take this as, would you hit the hard, anything revolving a hard reset instantly triggers me to think it starts at the quarterback position.
Right, but you don't have to hard reset to go try to aggressively get a top quarterback, I don't think. Unless, I mean, is he talking like, when he says hard reset, I'm thinking about trading away my, veteran guys, and I'm going to just kind of tear this thing down to the studs and tank for a year and have a 3-win season and then try to build this roster back up. That was my interpretation of it.
Okay. Well, there's no definition from Larissa as far as what a hard reset would be. So that makes it challenging. Does that include, trading away a couple of your stars or whatnot? And I mean, you got to define hard reset.
Right. But I mean, in terms of
personally, look, here's the thing. Larissa, I will say this. I'm worried about the quarterback position.
Me as well. Yeah. I mean, I understand the direction Pittsburgh's going. I'm just worried they're going to look at the start of next year, this time a year from now, and say, all right, we got to go get a quarterback.
And if you, however you want to build hard reset around all that, if they don't figure out this quarterback position this year, then it's not going to be a playoff run.
Yeah, for sure. Or at least, yeah, they're going to be in the same spot they've been in, which is make it to the dance, but then be one and done as they have been for many years now.
Bryce asking Dave and Alex not what the team will do. Is it time for Tomlin to step away from calling the defense, move on from Austin, bring in a new DC with pedigree so Tomlin can focus more on running the team, imprinting more discipline, and making sure his overall vision is executed? Number two, Alex, I don't mean to ruin your day by asking this question, but is it time for Danny Smith to go?
You just ruined my day for asking that question. From the standpoint of what I would do as opposed to what the team would do, we should mention that Tomlin did say acknowledging coaching staff changes, although that would seem like kind of more of a catch-all, just kind of things happen every single year. But we know the OC will be different, but there may be some other changes as well. Honestly, I've heard a lot of people speculate about, firing Terrell Austin and, the defense really being bad this year. I have not heard a good case laying out exactly what Austin did wrong or what he could have done better, especially given all the injuries his team suffered at inside linebacker, at safety, and playing for half the year without Cam Hayward. Look,
what was the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat on the defensive side of football for this team? That's let me pull that up real quick for you.
It was good. I don't know what it was, but and they finished go ahead, Dave.
It was 5.8. Could that be a little bit better? Yeah, you could always come out of it and say, it could be a little bit better. But if you want to look at what it takes to win and be competitive and make the playoffs, I mean, look at it at its core. Look at it at that stat. There's nothing there. I mean, once again, would you like it lower? Yes, you'd always like it lower. Is it awful? No.
And again, they finished, Pittsburgh did as the 6th best scoring defense this year. In 9 games, they held the opponent to under 20 points. There were some ugly moments for sure. I'm willing to listen to, I guess, what was so wrong from a schematic preparation, getting the best out of their players standpoint. I'm willing to hear that argument if somebody can present it, but I just don't even know where people would start. I've not heard anybody lay out the case. I've heard them say fire Austin, but I'm not sure why. I don't know what he did so terribly wrong that would lead to his firing.
I'm with you.
I think they did a good job considering all the crap they were dealt with from an injury standpoint. I mean, they were on 5th and 6th string safeties, inside linebackers, hubs of communication, pulling guys off the couch, and the defense never crumbled. So I give the Austin and company and Tomlin for the defensive side credit for the job they did.
Yeah, you developed a young cornerback along the way, a Joey Porter Jr. You were able to get that accomplished. You hit on it. How many inside linebackers and safeties did you go through? And you lost T.J. Watt for the playoff game. Look, I mean, is it perfect? No. And once again, could it have been better? Yes, but I don't think give us more of a reason why you would move on from Austin.
Yeah. Again, as you said, things can be improved upon for sure. There were some things probably during the course of the year I didn't love. They became very zone heavy, in part because they probably had to, but that hurt them in some respects. But just lay out the case. I've not heard anyone actually present a good case, or really any case, for moving on from Austin or removing some of the control Tomlin has over the defense.
All right, Max Shell from Larryville writes in, "Hey, Dave and Onyx, love the work and thank you to the Steelers Depot staff for a great season. For the past 2 years, Art Rooney II has emphasized physicality and running the ball well in his postseason interview. Putting my tinfoil hat on here, but do you think Art Rooney's lack of concern for a modern passing offense has any reason to do with the Steelers' JV play calling scheme throughout the season?"
I'd have to think about that some. I mean, Rooney has certainly been driving we have to run the ball well bus for many years now, but I don't think he's necessarily wrong about that. And I don't think having a strong ground game means you have to turn away from a creative and efficient passing game. Look at a San Francisco, Baltimore, 2 teams that run the snot out of the football and run it really well, but have high level passing games too. So I probably would say no to that thought.
In other words, has he overemphasized the physicality of the running the football in his postseason interviews?
No, I mean, I understand the point, but I think you can have both. You can have a physical ground game. Again, you see some of these top teams who can run the football, and you can still have a better pass game than what Pittsburgh has had.
What his directive should be this year is we have to score more points.
I am curious to hear what Art Rooney says in terms of his big thing he wants to see fixed. Is it just fix the quarterback position? I guess is probably going to be his takeaway.
Yeah. We have to get better quarterback play. We have to score more points.
I think you just held the Art Rooney press conference right there. That's probably what he's going to say.
All right, Cameron Andrews writes in, "Hey, Dave and Alex, thanks for all you do. Thanks for taking time. I love y'all. Read the emails. I'm going to try to keep them good questions. I can't promise that they'll be short, typed correctly. If you had to pick, what position would y'all double dip on in the draft?" He says, "I would prefer D-line. The jury is out on Leal and Loudermilk." He says Cam is closer to the end than the beginning. Larry has his moments, but it's not enough. If we can't do D-line, then O-line would be where I would aim at next. Center and right tackle, he says. Do you think they would look to draft a slot type receiver over an outside corner this year? And if we can't re-sign Mason, what veteran quarterback would you bring in to battle Kenny? He says, I was thinking about Jacoby Brissett, Tyrod Taylor, Gardner Minshew. If they are gone, he says Josh Dobbs, Marcus Mariota, or whatever is left of Joe Flacco. Yeah, let's before we even go down that road with the quarterback. I mean, look, Alex has talked about Jacoby Brissett since how many years you talked about?
Canada got hired.
Brissett, Gardner Minshew probably wouldn't be a bad option. But let's see what happens with Mason there.
And the OC hire is going to dictate a little bit of who your quarterback is, what your system looks like, and those types of things.
True. What position would y'all double dip in the draft? Look, I think they need to address defensive line in this draft. I'm not sure I would double dip at it. If we're doing offensive line as all positions involved, yeah, I would go tackle and center in this draft.
I would too, but I don't call that double dipping because the O-line is so broad and tackles and centers, they're night and day in terms of the position. But yeah, I mean, I would probably take 2 offensive linemen. Maybe, I mean, again, double dipping, I think, is often about the board. If there's somebody just you really like on the board, it's a little less about team need. When you're in day 3, you're just kind of taking, talent, and that may create some double dipping. But corner, maybe. I'm just trying to find a good corner opposite of Porter. And I know that the Trice will be healthy, we assume, for next summer, and Rush is there, but unknowns there. And you got to find somebody opposite Peterson if he's back. He can't play outside corner. He's got to be a slot guy, safety, interior type player. He just does not have the speed to play on the outside. So with Wallace a free agent, Pierre a free agent, and not great options, even if they are brought back, there is really nothing outside of Porter in terms of starting material.
If this team ends up having 7 or 8 draft picks in total this year, could you see them drafting 2 wide receivers?
I've done it before. I mean, it's very much in their wheelhouse. Again, with other needs, it's hard to justify that. But again, when you double dip, it's usually about value. I know the question about outside corner versus slot receiver. I'll just say this. I know outside corner, as I just said, is a huge need, but slot receiver, man, they've got no production there. Right. I mean, I know Robinson did it. I said on Wednesday, he did his role. He did it fine, but they got to get some guys that can make some plays, not average 8 yards per catch or just run motions the way that, Gunner and Sims did last year. The 2 straight years, they've really gotten nothing from that position, and that has to change. I
agree. They have to focus on that position specifically. I could see them maybe getting in a situation where they take 2 wide receivers, one slot, one maybe a developmental X or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair because if you lose Deontay, you lost Deontay this year, but if you lose him or Pickens, your outside depth is really nothing. I mean, Boykin, a special teamer and a free agent. Austin, I'm lower on Austin than most people. I mean, it seems to be, but you really have nothing there.
Jonathan Mason, we'll end with this one. Why do you think Tomlin is okay running it back with the quarterbacks currently on the roster? I think the best you can expect from either Mason or Kenny is slightly above average. Big Ben past his prime with bad legs, had 5 multi-TD games under Canada, yet the Kenny cult on the Twitter machine is taking everyone, talking everyone into him being much better with a good OC. Thanks. So, look, I don't know how to properly, why do you think Tomlin is okay running it back with the quarterbacks currently on the roster? I mean, that's a broad question.
I think they want to see how Pickett looks with the new OC. They liked how Rudolph played. And there's a little bit of like their loyalty and kind of sunk cost fallacy of this Pickett was our guy. We got to try to see this through for at least one more season. So I think those things kind of add up to them, quote unquote, trying to run it back.
And as far as everything else in the Kenny cult and all, like, look, Kenny has got a lot to prove. Period. End of statement.
Yeah, Tomlin said as much. I'm sure Pickett knows that. We're all aware of what this year means to him.
Their 2024 season, once again, is going to revolve around how the quarterback plays.
Yeah.
As those analysts getting paid big money to talk about quarterback being it's a key component. It is every year. You need good quarterback play to make a run at the Super Bowl. That's it.
Right. Look at the quarterbacks in the AFC right now. It's Mahomes, it's Allen, it's Lamar, it's Stroud. Those are 4 top-tier dudes. You got, how many MVPs between Mahomes and Allen and Jackson? I don't know. A handful, and then a Rookie of the Year to be in Stroud. Those guys are not going anywhere. And then you add in Herbert if the Chargers ever figure out their life, and Rodgers coming back, and Burrow, and we'll see about Deshaun Watson.
Did you mention Purdy in there?
I was talking just AFC, okay. but yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, good quarterback play across the board.
Right. So, I mean, look, all the talk to remain, even after Mike Tomlin talked yesterday, the talk the rest of the offseason will be, are they making the right decision at quarterback, and should they go out and get Cousins, Russell Wilson, Fields, insert one extra other name in there,
Yep, it will be still discussed. Don't think it's going to happen, but it will still be discussed.
All right, 2-hour mark, Alex. I think let's wrap this baby up. We will be back on Monday, right?
Yep, back on Monday, and heck, the Senior Bowl. We got some guys going for the Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl here pretty soon, so we're getting prepped for that. Got draft profiles on the site, and got a lot to talk about.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, hit SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button that way. Enjoy the weekend and a bunch of good games, playoff games to watch and all like that. We'll be around all weekend providing content, anything and everything under the sun, whatever we can find to write about. A lot of original content hopefully coming, draft profiles, all that good kind of stuff. So until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.